I respect MIT for the long-standing reputation, but once in a while we need to put a context to some of these views. I'm going to play a short video in between. It sounds like a bad news, but I'm going to give you 4 data points why it's actually more of a good news.
A new MIT study says the quiet part out loud. 95% of enterprise AI pilots fail. 95%. They do not deliver any meaningful revenue impact. So why is AI struggling to live up to its hype? In Silicon Valley, hype moves faster than product market fit. Take OpenAI, Google and Anthropic, for example. They drop their shiny new models. Companies sprint to adopt them, to build their own tools around them. Every Monday is AI Monday. Meetings are cancelled, roadmaps are rewritten, budgets are reallocated, all in the service of the AI pivot. But here's the hangover. Only about 5% of pilots actually boosted revenues in a measurable way. For the rest, the dashboards looked busy, but the bottom line stayed stubbornly flat.
The dashboard looks busy, but the bottom line stays stubbornly flat. That's actually an interesting play of word from her there. Although there have been 30 to 40 billion US enterprise investment in generative AI, and there have been only 5% measurable return on investment from this enterprise pilots, and of course investors are raising their brows to understand what's going on here. I'll begin with letting you understand the technology adoption curve, which is of course a bell curve model that describes how users adopt, accept, and of course react to an innovation. It all begins with the innovators, which is about 2.5% of the population, and then to the early adopters, which is about 13.5% of the population, to the early majorities, that is 34% of the population, and then to the late majority, that is 34% of the population, and of course the laggard, that makes up about 16% of the population. On the enterprise side, they are still on the innovator side, so it's only about 2.5% of the enterprise organization that had been having a pilot or test of generative AI. And of course, on the user or end user side, we are on the early adopter side. At this point, I wouldn't be wrong if I remind you of some of the most interesting innovations in history and their rate of adoption. I'll begin with the PC, which is between 1970 to 1980. It took 15 years for enterprise adoption of PCs. Then to internet, which is 1980 to 1990. It took 12 years for enterprise adoption of internet. For mobile phones between 1990s to the 2000s, it took 15 years for enterprise adoption of mobile phones. For cloud computing between 2000s to 2010, it took 10 years for the enterprise adoption of cloud computing. You can see how AI is not that bad. We'll figure it out. If you think that's old data, I've got another one here for you. The most recent innovation we've had is cloud computing, spearheaded by Amazon with AWS, Microsoft with Azure, and Google Cloud. Amazon's AWS was launched in 2006 and it became profitable in 2015. That's after about a decade. Microsoft's Azure was launched in 2010. It became profitable in 2019. That's after about a decade. Google Cloud was launched in 2008. It became profitable in 2025. That's after about 17 years. When Amazon launched AWS in 2006, no one knew they were going to be doing $11.1 billion in net profit in 2025 Q1. When Microsoft launched Azure in 2010, no one knew they were going to do $11 billion in net profit in 2005 Q1. And when Google launched GCP in 2008, no one knew they were going to be doing $2.2 billion in net profit in Q1 2025. Enterprise investment takes time. We started investing in generative AI in 2023. This is just about 18 months or 2 years. We need to calm down. To add more insights to this is the Gartner hype cycle for generative AI. For those who do not know, Gartner is a technology and business insights company, and the Gartner hype cycle is a graph that shows the adoption and maturity of an innovation and how it solves real business problem. The Gartner hype cycle is divided into 5 stages. The first is the innovation trigger. The second is the peak of inflated expectation. The third is the trough of disillusionment. The fourth is the slope of enlightenment, and the fifth is the plateau of productivity. At this time, Gartner had placed the generative AI around the trough of disillusionment. What does this mean? It means that this is where reality hits. This is where some of the project begins to fail. And then enterprise organization realize that they have to revisit their strategy and plan around it again. It does not mean this is a technology that is failing, but they have to revisit the drawing board. In summary, these are some of the challenges we're expected to see at the beginning of any innovation or technology. At this time, the learning curve is a challenge. Quality of data that we have is a challenge. Unclear use case is a challenge. And of course, scalability is still a challenge. So a 5% return on investment within an enterprise organization is still a path forward.